We began this exploration of metaphysical questions by tossing out the question, what are you? How do you exist in reality? What is the nature of that existence? Is it a purely physical one? Are you a body? Is that how you exist in reality? Is that what you are, a body? Or does it make more sense to you to think that, well, I'm a person with a body. I'm a person who has a body. There is some fundamental aspect of my existence that is real and in reality, but not physical. It's more like that Freaky Friday scenario, right? Where this essence of self is non-material and not confined to physical reality. So now I want you to think about this question. Who are you? What would be the most sensible way for you to answer this question, who are you? Would it make the most sense to describe who you are by your physical features? So if you asked who I am and I said, well, I'm a 53-year-old gray-bearded person that's 6 feet tall and 180 pounds, whose body ordinarily inhabits Arcata. That's where that body, my body can be located. Would that be a way that would make sense to you for me to answer that question, who am I? Or are you looking for something more like, well, tell me about what you believe. Tell me about what you want. Tell me about what your values are. Tell me about the experiences that you've had. Tell me what's important to you. Or is that the way that you would answer those questions? And I'm asking you this because I want you to consider how your sense of identity, your sense of you-ness, my sense of me-ness, how exactly does that persist over time? Because I think of myself as the same person that's captured in these photos. By the way, you can see how cheesy the Halloween costumes were in the 70s. Oh my God, look at that head of hair. I miss that hair. Here's a picture of me my grandmother forced me to take. She wanted me to look like I was reading the Bible. It's interesting, I'm probably reading Revelations, the end of the Bible here, which ties in nicely with my Satan costume. So at any rate, I recognize that I'm quote unquote not the same person that's depicted in these pictures. I recognize that I have different thoughts, I have different experiences, I have different emotions. I mean, all different kinds of parts of my existence are really different than they were when I was that age. What's really interesting to me, though, is there is nothing that existed in me physically in those pictures that exists today, right? Every single cell of my body has been replaced multiple times at this point, okay? So there's actually nothing physical that existed when those pictures were taken that's associated with my identity that exists now. So think about then the implication for physicalism, right? So a physicalist could explain cell replication and DNA and genetic coding and all of that stuff. But the fact is that me, physically, no longer exists in any way that existed when those pictures were taken. And yet, I experience a very persistent sense of self over time, right? I woke up today believing that I was the person who laid down in bed and went to sleep last night. I didn't wake up and expect to be a new person or a different person. So there's something that doesn't seem to change, that's associated with our identity and persists over time, even though every single physical aspect of ourselves doesn't persist over time. Things get replicated, cells die off, new cells come about. So it's a question I want you to think about, because I want you to think about what the implications for physicalism would be for your sense of identity and your sense of self and your experience of self. Does physicalism seem to make sense in explaining your experience of your persistence, or your persistent experience of yourself over time? Or does physicalism seem to fail to address something that you believe is real about your experience of yourself in reality that might require an explanation other than physicalism?